Welcome, everyone, and very glad that you could join us today. My name is Paula Newcomb, and I'm the North Regional Coordinator of the Indiana State Library's Professional Development Office. I will be the host and question moderator for today's webinar, Microsoft Teams for Libraries. If you have questions during the webinar, feel free to put them in the chat. Today's presenter is Emily Ellis. She's the Director of the Greenwood Public Library. After this webinar has been transcribed, it will be available on the Indiana State Library's archived webinars page. If you are watching an archived recording of this presentation, information on how to obtain your LEU is in the video's description in YouTube. For weekly updates on upcoming trainings and to learn more about what's happening in libraries across the state, please subscribe to the Indiana State Library's e-newsletter, The Wednesday Word, and check out our continuing education website for other professional development opportunities. So let's get started. I'll start with a reminder. Again, in the chat, make sure you change it from host to panelist to everyone, and we'll get started. All right, thank you so much for being with us today, Emily, and I'll hand the presentation over to you.
Sure. So thanks everybody for signing up and coming. I end up talking really fast, so tell Paula to have me slow down if I talk really fast. So this is Microsoft Teams for Libraries. So as she mentioned, I'm going to do a quick hello so you can kind of see what my library is like, how many people we have, and why we made the shift to Teams. And then we'll kind of go over the different parts of Teams, some things I learned along the way, like tips and tricks that I want to share, and then kind of the status of where we're at now with that. But as Paula mentioned, my name's Emily Ellis. I'm the director of the Greenwood Public Library. I'm finishing up my first year as director, but I've been here for 19 years. So along with all of the manager directy stuff I do, I did bring all of my assistant director tasks with me as well. So I do manage building-wide collections, programming, outreach, advocacy. I create training modules, and I'm the technology liaison. We use ABC technology. I do a lot of troubleshooting in-house, but I do call on them from time to time when I can't figure something out. And so all of those little pieces, the building-wide collections and programming, that was something that we struggled with before Teams, and I think we've gotten a lot better communicating between different departments on those different topics, and it's been really helpful, and I've really enjoyed it. I won't say it was the most fun thing to roll out, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. That's a picture of our library. We are a one building library. We have roughly 34,000 residents in our district, taxing district. We have 37 employees, and we are surrounded by the county system. We're about 1.5 miles from the county line, so we have a lot of people coming that are non-residents into the building. We are 2 stories. Downstairs, we have our team department, our checkout patron services area, and our kids department. And then the second floor is our makerspace administration and adult services. And so sometimes with a building this big, we're about 53,000 square feet, it's difficult to communicate, and I can only imagine it's that way at branches as well, how to make sure that everybody is getting the same information and you're sharing information in similar ways across your system. So making the shift, we were Google people, and I will full transparency, there are days I still miss Google. We used a lot of Google Docs, Google Sheets. I have a GPL account for Google, but then you also found that a lot of times you were kind of creating in your own account and sharing, making owners. It just got very messy. For chats, we were using Trillian, which was not very secure. And so our ABC, our technology company, reached out and said, well, we really would like to move you to Office 365 for security. That way we have our eyes and hands on it. We can control just every aspect of it, where Google we cannot. And we were getting a new email server anyway, so it was going to be more secure. It was going to function better with our server. And also had a lot of additional features, and I knew absolutely nothing about Microsoft Teams. I mean, I was a Microsoft user, the Office user, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, but I did not know anything about Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive. So it was something we were already paying for as they moved us to the updated email server. It came with all of this. And so I wanted to make sure that we were taking advantage of that. I wanted to make sure that we were getting the most out of those particular licenses. And I really, really like the idea of mobile desktops. I kind of move around the building a lot. So depending on where I'm sitting, I can pull up my specific information, which is really nice. That way we do have desk specific information, which I'll talk about. So if you are at the adult reference desk and I'm sitting in my office and I want to message them, and it doesn't really matter to me who is on the desk at that particular point, I just need them to be at that point, at that place, I can email or I can message directly to the adult desk. So we have 4 service desks in the building, so that can be really helpful as well. So it really was a security issue, was the initial, this is why we're moving from Google. And I think after we've been on this about 3 years, I believe, and I think I finally have moved all of my documents from Google to Teams, and then we saved them in a variety of different ways. So using Teams as a communication tool, there are several different aspects to Teams that you can use to communicate, which is wonderful, but it also has its issues as well, because you can share information multiple ways. So trying to remember how you receive the information can be a little tricky. Chat is the first point. And so that was our replacement to Trillian, was the chat feature. So those are a lot of quick and in the moment conversations or sharing. I need to tell you something right now. We don't have to remember it. We can move on after that. You can pin frequently texted individuals at the top, so you're not hunting through your entire list of contacts to find who you need to chat. You can create group texts. So I do that. You can kind of see on the screen here, administration, management team, programmers groups. So I can make sure that I don't have to, each time I want to chat with multiple people, add them. I can create a group. And it is searchable. And actually the searching feature within Teams searches all of Teams. So if you can't remember, there's a piece of information that got sent to you, you can't remember where it's at. Is it in a Teams thread? Is it in chat? Was it a document that got sent to me? You can do the search tool, and that searches everything, which is really nice. And as I mentioned, we created an account for each service desk. So there's a kids desk, an adult desk, patron services desk. So those are always up, and we have them automatically load as soon as the computer is turned on for the day, so that there's always a way to get a hold of somebody at that desk, whoever it is. And then staff members, when they are on their shift at the desk, they'll use the mobile version. They'll do the browser version instead of the desktop version, because there are 2 ways that you can access all of this information. So in the browser, they have their personal Teams, not personal, but staff Teams that is specific to them. And then the desktop itself is logged into that general, whoever is at the adult desk can get on there. So that is really, really nice. We did have to do a few reminders, and this might be later in the presentation. I can't remember if I put this on there, of like, just know that if you post certain things in certain areas, everybody is reading those. So if it's something that you want to share specifically with one person, chat is the way to do that, as opposed to Teams, which we'll see here in just a second. Teams is kind of the day-to-day. It is the one-stop kind of shop where all of the information is at your fingertips. So it can offer group-focused conversations. So if there is a great example is a program. For summer reading, we have a group team that is called Summer 2026. So all of our conversations about Summer 2026 can go into that particular team. And within a team, and you can see my list of teams here, I have adult services, GPL all staff, GPL collectors. So I kind of do it by department, and then also whoever is a programmer can have the GPL programmers, so very specific responsibilities as well. Within those teams, we can have channels, and this will make a little more sense when I show the live version of it. But within each channel, you can have additional information. So under GPL programmers, that's where I have the 2026 summer reading channel. So all of our information about summer reading is in that one place. It's open to all staff members. They can post or just read, which is really nice. So everybody's kind of up to date on what is going on, where the brainstorming is headed. You can also start threads for instant feedback. And this was something I had wanted for a very long time. both for just fun to get the whole team, the whole library communicating with one another, and with fun questions and that kind of thing. What are you reading? But also for that, can we avoid a meeting? You know, we have a lot of meetings, and sometimes email, it's a little difficult to have that quick stream of thought. Hey, let's talk about this. So the threads are really nice because we can have those continued conversations, and it's all contained in one space. On the screen here, you can see, for example, my management team. This is the management team, and we take turns going to city council meetings and reporting back on what happened. We want the city to see that we have our presence there, that we are active participants in what's going on in the city. And so we post our Common Council reports here on the thread. So we'll say what date it was, what happened, any news that we need to share, or something funny happened, which often happens in those meetings. So all of that is in one location. You can tag within a team to make sure that individuals are actually reading the information, that they get an extra notification, but I will show that to you when we get to the live part. And again, it's searchable. So if I had messaged Julia, my community relations specialist, something about a Common Council meeting, and then I was like, wait, did I post that in the team or did I send that to Julia? I can do a search and it will show me both locations. If there's multiple or where that's located, it'll say, hey, it's in the chat. That's where you sent it from. So all of that is searchable, which is really nice. There is no limit on how many teams you can create. I would highly recommend having one person kind of be the spearhead. I have created all of the teams on there. That way, if we have a staff member leave and their account they were the owner of the team, especially if it's a department team, that gets a little troublesome to try to move ownership between staff members. So I wanted to make sure that we were consistent on who we were inviting to each of the teams, how they were set up, but then staff members can add channels within those teams. So if there is a topic that they want to make sure that they can talk about together, they can add a channel to the team, and they're able to do that without any issue. So that is chat, and then Teams, which is the whole thing is Microsoft Teams. And so these are individual teams. It gets a little complicated, but these are the groups that you put together on specific topics that you want for communication. So as I mentioned, I have my department teams, adult services, all staff. So that's everybody is in that. The kids management team, patron services in the studio, which is our makerspace. And then we have more focused groups like the collectors, anybody that works with collection development, our programmers, and our marketing team. And then within that, we have channels. So for example, under GPL collectors, we have patron requests. So we actually use Microsoft Lists for that. And there's a form that staff fill out every time that there's a patron request. That way we make sure that the right collector is notified that there is an item that our patrons would like to have purchased for the collection. But it's also really nice because it's helping us watch trends on what is being requested. We are, trying as always to kind of stay in front of any potential controversies, issues, any censorship threats. So that actually allows us to keep an eye on what people are asking, and are we being biased in our collection? It allows us to reevaluate that. Again, like something like the 2024 summer reading, you can archive channels as well, which is really nice because that way you're not losing that information. It'll still be searchable, but it's not necessarily in the list. So you're not having 25 lists in the GPL or channels in the GPL programming team. Community matters. That's where we get to discuss who's coming in for a tour, any connections we've made out in the community that we want to make sure our staff know about. Maker demo days. So that's, here's the artists we're looking at for our artist demonstration days. So we can continue to add to that. Sometimes we do archive things quite often as our services and programs change, but it's really nice to have accessibility to them as well. If there's something that we kind of mentioned in a brainstorming that we decided not to do, but we don't want to forget, we can search and it'll be available in the archives as well, which is really nice. There we go. Lists. So this, again, I knew nothing about this, and I wanted ways to track information consistently. That is something historically our staff have really struggled with. And so these lists, it's just an app that you can add to any of your teams or channels that allows you to have a form that they fill out so information is consistent across departments. So you do receive notifications. I can set it up where we have something called, well, the tech help request here. If there is something with the computer out on the floor, they will fill out the tech help request. I get notified that there has been an issue and that it's been added to the list. I can then go and make updates to it so they know where we're at in the troubleshooting process. It's transparent with sharing information. They can see that I'm doing my part as I go in and update, and I can see kind of, again, consistency of how often is this computer being checked on because it keeps having the same issue. So it's all kind of at my fingertips right there. You, again, can set up different kind of notifications. We have one for those patron requests. As they are filling out the list, it'll automatically go to certain people if boxes are checked. So if nonfiction history is selected, that it was a patron request, Aubrey, our collector for history, will be notified that there's new requests in her specific section. A lot of times sometimes they've updated it quite a bit where you can do a lot of that within the list app itself, or you can use Power Automate, which connects all pieces of the Microsoft ecosystem together. So you can, with Power Automate, you can say, every time an email is sent, I would like it to be added to this list, also to my to-do list. Like there's a series of rules that you can say, hey, every time this happens, I want this to be added in different places, which is really kind of nice. It's a little bit like coding. It's not my favorite thing to do, but we figure it out. And we do have several of those Power Automates, and I'm happy to pull that up to kind of show you that as well. So you know that that is available if you have Office 365. And a few of our different kinds of lists, we have breaking the rules. Anytime an exception is made for a patron, we kind of track that to make sure that that's not something that needs to be a policy change down the road. Patron requests, technology help. Every time our library van needs used, they can check out the library van when we have library tours and visits, so that we just have a log of who's coming into the building, who we've shared our story with, the different connections that we've made. A check request for programming. So if we have a presenter coming, there is a list that they can fill out so that we know that a check is needed to be signed at our next board meeting. Program design. This is something we started a few years ago as well, actually right at the same time, which was not my smartest move, where there's a form they fill out for programs so we can again start talking about programming more consistently, and so that programs are being sent to our marketing individual more consistently with what designs needed for promotional materials, how estimated budgets are shared to me for the programming budget. So all of that is a little more consistent. We have a book a librarian list where they are tracking who is taking care of which registrations for book a librarian. And then we have special collections, which is our library of things collection. So we can see if there was something wrong with the kit, we can track all of that as well. You can link Microsoft Forms as well to automatically populate the tracker. So right now, for example, we have our strategic planning surveys out to the public. Every time a form is filled out, a survey form is filled out, it gets put on a list that is easy to share with staff. It allows us to just kind of sort information a little differently too. And so you do have that option. I really like too with the status, especially it shows here on the screen of the technology help, that we can mark this is in progress. I haven't started it yet. It's complete. So there is accountability for me to get things done and transparency for them on where we're at in the process, which is really nice. I did also learn how to archive items on the list, because sometimes the lists can get very long. I don't create a new one for each year, so we are just building on the patron request list. We can have it where then there's an archive button that I've set up that will actually send it to another list that's just holding older data, so that it's not filling with the new stuff, just to make stuff a little easier to find as well. Next. There we go. And then there's SharePoint sites. There's a lot of different things you can do with SharePoint sites. This reminded me a lot of Google Sites. The one thing to remember with Microsoft Teams is that dependent on how it's set up, and it was set up by ABC Technology, and so they have assigned different permissions on what we're allowed to access and what we're not allowed to access, which I'm perfectly fine with because of that security issue, especially as we want to try to get cyber insurance. All of that kind of comes into play as well. So SharePoint sites are really difficult to share outside of your building with people that are not a part of your team, your group, your employee group. So that is one frustration I have. I did have to create a Google site not that long ago. We created an advocacy toolkit. And so I had to use Google Sites because I wanted to make sure it was available for the public as well. So a lot of this, the way our technology company has it set up, is purely in-house. But there are different ways depending on however you decide to set it up, that you could share it out to the public or just in-house. This is really great for condensing information. I should have updated the images because I did give it a facelift, our GPL website. So this is the intranet site that we use for staff. It's a one-stop shop for all of the information that we use quite frequently. So there's transparency with information. Everybody has access to everything. They can't necessarily change everything. I lock some of that down, but any data or information they may need is right on there. It's also quick access to frequently used information. So I have quick links on there. We use a website often to determine if someone lives within our taxing district or if they're a part of the county system. So the link to that is right on the page. You can bookmark a SharePoint site to your browser, which is really nice. And again, it is part of that searchable tool. They also have within here the ability to create news posts. And so we create the news post as weekly newsletters. And so there's an example of that on the screen from September of 2024, where I share upcoming reminders about these are the programs happening next week. I want to make sure everybody in the building knows what programs are coming up. A lot of times we have found that, for example, people in patron services don't necessarily pull up the programming calendar, so they don't know when to expect crowds, or if people have questions, what room a program is in. So all of that information is in the newsletter. We share reminders about, hey, don't forget the carpet's being cleaned this weekend, or the windows are being washed, so that they know what's happening in the building, about the building itself. We have a getting to know you question, which is just for fun. And we've actually started sharing that on a team, which I will show you where all of that is. I have started adding my schedule to the newsletter just so they know when I'm should be in the building or when I'll have to be available only by phone. And we also do book recommendations. So staff members take turns sharing recommendations on there as well. So it's just a weekly reminder of, hey, this is what's going on in the building. In case you haven't gotten out of your department this week, this is what's happening in the other departments, just so everybody is aware of what's going on. I'm having trouble with that. There we go. Here's kind of a zoomed in version of this. So you can create different pages in the SharePoint site, and I will show you our newer version here on a live version of that. All of this can be linked to Teams, so you can have a link to the GPL web on every tab, which I have typically done that. That way, when they're in Teams itself and say they're in the GPL programmers team, there is a link directly to this site from there. So you can get to it wherever.
Hey, Emily?
Yeah.
We have a question. Someone said, might have missed it, but you might mention it later, but who is the we or responsible for making this SharePoint site newsletter?
I do that. Yeah, I do the newsletter every week. I reach out to management team to make sure that if there's any information from each of the departments that they want shared into it. This could definitely be something that a marketing director does as well. But since it's in-house, I kind of take that on. That way, I'm not trying to share all the information that's in my head about the building to someone and hoping that they'll remember, all my particular list. But that is something that I put together. Yeah. And it's super easy. It takes me about 10 minutes now. I've created a template, but I'll show you that. I've created a template so that I just pull it up, I change the information in it, and you can send it as an email, you can send it as a link. There's different ways that you can send that, but I'll show you that. So our SharePoint sites, these are 3 of the different pages that we have. We have the collections page, which includes information about Subject Savvy. My library got rid of the Dewey Decimal System, and we use a thing that we call Subject Savvy that we created ourselves. So it has the quick links to our Subject Savvy indexes and our style guide. We are working really hard on consistency across the building. So making sure that our spine labels are clean, have the right information, and is consistent across departments. We have our policy and responsibilities when it comes specifically to collections. So I put our collection definitions, our collection development policy. If we have that patron request tracker, they can go there. This is where their budgets are. This is where I also keep our statistics, because I run statistics every month for collections for circulation. So anything collections related is right on the collections page. Again, one-stop shop, everybody has access to. There's complete transparency on all of that. The dashboard on the right-hand side, that is all statistics. I am a big fan of spreadsheets and statistics. Talking spreadsheets is about one of my favorite things to do. So that is, again, a one-stop shop for them to see all of the numbers, where we're at. We do quarterly updates, but if they would like at any particular moment, especially our community relations manager, when she is trying to write a grant, she can just hop onto the dashboard and all of that information is right there. It's also where I keep all the information as we prep throughout the year for the annual report. So how I track statistics are designed specifically for that annual report, so that I can just one day sit down, pull all the numbers that I need for that to turn it into the state library. And then programs, just like collections, everything that has to do with programs, they have a link to that design form, evaluation forms that they send out to patrons after a program is done. We also do something now called the vibe check, which is our own evaluation of the program. We have found that we are actually the best evaluators of the program. You can typically read people to see how they like it. So we ask very specific questions to our patrons, but then we do a vibe check of how do we think it went? What did we learn from that program? What would we do differently next time? And that is shared so everybody can kind of see that. Maybe another programmer won't make the same mistake that I made, buying way too many cookies, or not having the room set up in time, or not checking in with my presenter enough ahead of time to know how the program was going to go. So we can have different sites within the SharePoint site, all a part of what we call the GPL web in one location, which is really nice. And we do staff trainings as well. I actually use Microsoft Teams to record a lot of the staff trainings. I can just start a webinar kind of like this, hit record, do whatever I need to do on the screen to show them information, and then we save it directly to GPL Web so that they can see, at any point they can hop on there and watch the tutorials. So this is an image of kind of a cheat sheet that I created for staff as we really kicked off using Microsoft Teams. There was some confusion about when should I use what? And again, because everything is searchable, it's really nice that it doesn't really matter how you send information, but if you want to be a little more consistent and making it easier on yourself, if you want to do an email, that's usually for longer correspondence that you want to keep. That way you can refer back to it. I do a lot of that when for like severe weather reminders about what we do if there's a tornado warning. I will send that out as an email so they can keep that in their email and they won't lose it. I wouldn't do it as a chat because it could then get lost in the chat thread. I'll also post it to GPL Web. So there's, again, that one-stop shop where they can go, but they can have the information there. Our Thursday newsletter is kind of quick reminders for all staff. An example, like I mentioned, is, hey, just a reminder that the carpets are being cleaned. Please put everything up off the floor in your office so that we can get that taken care of. Chat is more quick, immediate. Teams is for brainstorming, sharing ideas. And I've given some examples of what people have sent or I have sent. I would type out a chat and add that to that. So staff just kind of have an idea of how to use the different communication tools. Again, because it's all searchable, there's no wrong way to do this. But if they just want to make sure that for their own sanity, they're sending and sharing information in a way that makes sense to them, this is just kind of a cheat sheet. We also do monthly lunch and learns. I've done it on a lot of the Microsoft products. I did create, after a while, a specific team, which I'll show you, which is just for tips and tricks that I've learned. I scheduled one-on-ones with people, the individuals who are a little more hesitant about hopping onto the platform and using Teams. I scheduled one-on-ones with them and I walked them through it. Because it's the Microsoft ecosystem, it's very familiar. So it's not like going from Microsoft to Adobe. Adobe, you know, if you've learned Adobe stuff, then you're good when a new Adobe product comes out because it's very similar. Same here with Microsoft information. So the learning curve was not that high. It's just there are now those multiple ways to communicate. So making sure everybody's comfortable with that. And then, as I mentioned, we did a lot of recorded tutorials on specific topics. I did do online trainings as well. So people were sitting all around the building and they were logging in so that they could actually have their teams up as well to play along as I was going through information, as I was learning it also. And then surviving the rollout and lessons learned. There will be dissent and you will want to yell, never mind, and cry in your office, which I maybe did a few times. So the people that are comfortable with technology hop on really quickly. The people that aren't, it's a little tougher to get everybody going. If you make the decision to use it though, you have to use it and you have to use it often. And that is one thing that kind of got me through that never mind, is that I just kind of kept powering through. I did a lot of the one-on-one trainings, but I wanted to make sure we were using it. I wasn't doing all of this work for us to then never click at these pages again. So we are going to use Teams. And so I used it all the time. And I would send someone a chat. And if they didn't respond or see it, I would go down and say, let's look at your notifications. Are they set up correctly? What would make it easier for you to find that you have a notification? There will be an aha moment where everybody just kind of gets it. And it's the most beautiful moment that you'll experience, that kind of sigh of relief of a, ho, okay, we've turned the corner. As I mentioned, rolled this out at the same time that I rolled out the program design form, which was maybe just a little too much all at once for staff. So maybe don't roll out this part if you're also getting a whole new phone system or something like that, because that'll be a lot for people to kind of handle. Sometimes things look different on my end as I'm building. So I did select a staff member to be my guinea pig, someone that I knew was comfortable with technology. If I asked a question for them, like, what are you seeing on the screen, that they would be comfortable answering that for me. A lot of times I will also build something, walk down to that individual, ask them to pull it up so I can see what they're seeing. So sometimes things look a little different for me as I'm building, as opposed to what they're going to see on the other end. So just kind of keep that in mind. The one piece that I really liked, the ability, if I have to go staff the adult reference desk, I can go on the browser, log in as myself, so I have all of my information in one place. That does come with its issues at shared desks. It's because of cookies. So you oftentimes have to just clear the cookies to make sure, because I would go to try to log in and somebody else is already logged in and it wouldn't let me put my password in to get myself logged in. So we do have some trouble with cookies, but staff have gotten more comfortable with clearing those. And so it's not as big of an issue now as it was right at the beginning. And no matter how much you want this to be the ultimate fix, it's not going to solve all of your communication problems. I think on the last, I don't know how many strategic surveys or strategic plans I've been a part of in 19 years here at the library, communication is always on there. We are always talking about communication and trying to figure out ways to improve communication. What it comes down to is, though, the staff members have to take responsibility for checking their notifications, for checking their chat, their emails. So this won't solve everything, but I think it has really improved, especially communication between departments. So our kids department, which is downstairs, has a clear line of contact upstairs to the adult reference department through Teams, which is really nice. And I've really liked the group brainstorming as well. That has been very helpful. So just know it's not the the biggest fix in the world, but I think it's made great strides at my library of improving communication. I will pull this back up at the end, but I want to get out. Paula, was there any other questions before I go into show teams?
Yes. We had a question. Would you be willing to share your program design form evaluation and vibe check? And
Yep.
also there's another one. Someone wanted a copy of the navigating communication graphic.
Okay.
So I mean, I can remind you later.
Perfect. All right. Yes, I'm happy to share anything. So if there's something that you see that you want more information on, just let me know. And I'd be happy to share links or screenshots depending on what it is, because it's all in-house. I can't necessarily share some of this stuff outside of my building. I will definitely find a way to share it with you.
Right. And also another question, someone has Google and they are running out of space. Have you found that as an issue with Teams?
I have not found that as an issue with Teams at all. In fact, so we have, 2 servers in our server room at, actual servers. They are talking about moving us to cloud servers when we are in need of a replacement. We have not had any issues with running out of space on Teams at all. And we use, a lot of my stuff is in OneDrive. It's a pretty large amount of information, which I can show you as well, that is on there, but we have not had that issue on Microsoft Teams.
Okay. And I had a question for
Sure.
your intranet. For your intranet, is that all on Teams, or did you have to do like a web building software?
Nope, it's all on Teams. So this is our GPL web. I did this through SharePoint. So you can see up in can you still see that? Does that? I didn't think about the sharing. It's still on there, right? Okay. Up in the upper left-hand corner, it's showing that we are in SharePoint. And when I click that, it'll show you all the different apps that I have through Office 365. So it is all a part of the Microsoft 365 grouping of apps. So it works directly with Microsoft Teams. So I apologize. I'm gonna mute my phone's ringing. So we have a quick link to our employee handbook. It is just a PDF that is linked there. It is searchable. We have a hyperlinked index. We have our library policies, which is a page, our procedures. As we are developing our new strategic plan, it's there. Here's those other pages, so our collection development, programming guidelines, and statistics. I have a place where it's a list of all of the staff meetings for the year and what the topics of conversation are. So those lunch and learns I mentioned, they are all listed here. I use Microsoft Teams to create the webinar, so staff members do register, so I know how many to anticipate are coming. So all of that information is right there.
We had someone ask. Someone said, "Amazing!" And did you build this all yourself?
I did. And I don't know code or anything like that, so it is very intuitive in that way. So I did build all of this myself, and there's been a few iterations because I've learned things as I've gone. And we have a lot of conversations, especially at the management team level, about what information needs to be shared better, what is too much sharing. So we talk about a lot of that. Here are those training videos that I've made. Again, those are all linked directly in here that they can watch. And these were made directly here in Microsoft Teams.
One other question, is this WCAG compliant?
I'm going to be honest, I don't know what is WCAG?
Is that involving ADA, right?
Web accessibility. The intranet, we have not touched that yet. We are currently working on our patron website to be web accessible. So this is not at the moment, no. We will probably get to that though.
Right, thank you.
We are getting a whole new website because of that.
Awesome. Right now, no other questions, but I'll let you know if we do.
Okay, thank you. I do have a few quick links for different departments. These are breaking the rules when an individual, this will show you the lists, for example. Hopefully, there we go. So this is when there has been an exception made to a policy. we have the staff member, they tell us what happened, how they chose, what they chose to do. If we had to make a decision about it, we would put that way, we'd mark that. And as you can see, decision for management team, if we decided to make an adjustment either to a policy or to signage, sometimes it was just a signage issue, we would put that information on there. So we are kind of always tracking that of what patrons are asking for and what exceptions we have to make. Which list template? I saw that in the chat, Paula. I don't use a template. I just build it on, so I'll pull up lists for you. Hopefully you can see that. I don't know if you can, when I get out of the browser. I might have to go to it a different way. Can you see that, the tech help request?
Not yet. We're still seeing the web.
Okay, I will come back to that, but I'll show you. I actually just build from scratch the lists. I don't use any of the templates because I find that I have to format more. And if I'm just starting from scratch, it's a little easier for me. We have quick links, as I mentioned, different forms that staff may need, any documents that I want to make sure they have. And then we've got some information about onboarding and offboarding that is all right there. So that is our GPL web. On the left-hand side, we have a My News, and that's where they can see all of the different newsletters that I put out. I'll be working on one today. This I did create a page template for. So I don't have to do any of the like colorways or formatting or anything. I can just pull it up and say, hey, I want to do a new one. And it'll let me do that. So this is, I just use this template and I can put information on there as needed. So it gets pretty quick to do for me because now it's just plug and play, which is really nice. And that is one thing I would also mention, like the setup, it did take me a while. But once it's set up, a lot of it is plug and play at this point. I don't have to do a lot of work to it, which is really nice. Sorry, I'm going to go back to GPL Web. The news posts I do send out when you get ready to publish them. Which I can always go back and edit them in the upper right-hand corner. It'll let me edit and republish if needed. I send it out in their email. So they will get this newsletter in the email, but then they can always come back to GPL Web if they lose that in their email and pull up older newsletters as well. So this was kind of a light week, but I just share upcoming programs. We do something called the Background Movie Club. We're on the last Friday of the month in one of our programming spaces that isn't being used that day. We put on a movie, staff can grab a laptop, bring their lunch, and work together. Really always working to get out of siloing since we are a bigger building. This typically changes under, like this week it was a construction update, but that'll change a lot. So that is our SharePoint GPL web. Again, that is linked just about everywhere I could link it. And now we're back on Teams. And on the left-hand side, you can see a list of all of the different teams that we have. Advocacy is our newest team. And so any advocacy efforts are shared within this particular team. And then if I click on the little arrow to expand it, you see the different channels within the team. So this is a place where adult services staff members can share impact stories. So we always have those at our fingertips. For the kids department, what's really nice about this is that the adults can also read the kids impact stories. So all of that is there so everybody can see it. If we have updates on what's going on with legislation or what we're doing with advocacy, we post it in this location. So everything is all together. And so each of these different teams have different channels. And the biggest one is probably our GPL all staff, which is then where you'll get into where some of the lists, and I'll show you some of those lists.
And someone asked, can this be set up to keep track of stats such as computer use and reference questions?
Depending on how you want to do it, yes. I don't quite know how to answer.
Or maybe is this person asking, could you maybe put a spot for the numbers that they track, maybe?
Yeah, we
Is that your
definitely do
question?
that on GPL Web with our dashboard and statistics. We track our reference questions through our ILS. So we do it through Evergreen, Indiana. So I have in-house uses where it's reference questions. So at the end of the day, they've tallied throughout the day, and then they hop on Evergreen to in-house, and then they post in-house like, hey, we answered 137 reference questions today. So it goes into Evergreen. I then run reports, and that's where I get this information where I am tracking all of the different questions. So by quarter, by month, again, all for the annual report, the way I have it designed. So you can see then like the month of January, patron services answered 597 easy reference questions. So we track it there. We don't necessarily track within teams though.
Okay. Maybe their library has a different setup or system.
Oh, it says, yeah, it just might be how you decide to track that information. So we don't do that on here, but you definitely could, depending on whether that's, you connect a spreadsheet to it, you use the list to kind of track that, which you could do. I'll pull up one of those lists for you. Here's the breaking the rules tracker, and up at the top, this is where we find the list. And you can see I have GPL linked on here. And then, so this is what the list looks like. And so you could do that here where at the end of the day, you put the date and, hey, we answered X amount of reference questions. So you could do that. You can again filter, hey, I just want to see the ones that Donna has posted for breaking the rules, or during a different specific time frame, or ones that are still open. So I know, hey, I need to address some of those. And then this is the chat feature. So again, this is that one-on-one, but you can make groups within here. So like our programmers group, that automatically goes to everybody within the programmers group. If you do within the threads, I'm hopping around, I apologize, but like this is an example where we tag GPL all staff. Everyone will then receive a notification. That bell will light up for them in the upper left-hand corner that they have a notification. So that allows them to know like, hey, there is something I need to read on Teams. And it will stay, as you can see under adult services, those are bold. General and book a librarian are bold. That means there's something in there I haven't read. And once it's not bold, that means I've read everything, I've caught up. Now, all staff members I haven't added to all teams, and that's only because the information that I'm sharing in the newsletter covers a lot of that, and some people get really overwhelmed with too much information. So one of our patron services clerks doesn't necessarily need to know what's happening in the collectors team. They will have what I share with them in the newsletter. So that way they're just not getting a ton of notifications when they only work, 20 hours a week, that they're not constantly spending all of their time reading notifications. So they can choose to, if they really wanted to be a part of the team, I would add them, but I didn't add everybody to it. It does connect to your Outlook calendar if you use Outlook, so I can pull up my calendar here within Teams. And then this is where I specifically mark or create a webinar if I'm doing that, or those lunch and learn events, I do that through here. It does connect me directly to my OneDrive, which is where I save all of my information now. So it is all together, which is really nice. As I mentioned, it's that kind of one-stop shop for everything. So that is, I know that was a lot, and I apologize. It was very fast.
And also to think, if you want to bring up your teams again, your channels.
Sure.
Something to think about is this is what you see. Not everybody sees everything that you see. So
Correct.
Different staff can be put on different teams. So their teams will look different than yours.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. We also use teams that are at the state library. So ours is similar. again, we might have different things that you do that we don't, but that we can't do because of other issues. But yeah. So let's see. We had more questions. We had another person ask. Maybe she's asking more generally if anyone else has tried something called shifts
I
for
have not.
scheduling. Okay. And are we going to see how to set up meetings for patrons to view programs? Do you do
We
that?
do not use that. For that, we use local hop for all of our program registration. And again, that would really depend on how your teams is set up. Um, I can share forms outside of the building, but I can't really share calendar stuff outside of the building. It's just that our technology company has set it up in that capacity. So we use local hop for all of our program registration. The webinars, you might be able to with webinars. Let me see, we'll pull that up here really quickly. Got too many things in the way. So if I do a new event, you would be able to put outside people on there that they could do that. So if it's a virtual event, absolutely within the calendar, you would be able to do that. You could invite the required attendees. I'm going to choose the webinar option because this is what I typically use for the lunch and learn so that there's registration. So there is within here when you do the configuration, it'll say who do you want external people to be able to come to this, and you can mark yes, that it's not just in-house. So the webinar is where you can actually do the registration for events if you wanted to do that.
So of course how long did it take? I know you're continually setting things up probably and changing. How long do you think it took to put it together to be able to use it?
It did not take me that long. I would say it took about a month to set up the basic stuffs to get everybody started. So the first thing I did was just the teams. GPL Web came a little later. So I was able to set up the teams. I did share again with my guinea pig staff member. I started sharing stuff with her so I could then go see what she was seeing on her screen, what I was able to access versus what she was able to access. So this part of it was the first thing that I set up. A lot of the lists and GPL Web came a little later, but we rolled out chat and Teams. I would say within a couple weeks, I was able to get all of that up and running, and then everything else kind of filtered in after that. And it is something I revisit all of the time of, again, having conversations with staff members about what information needs to be communicated better, what they would like more at their fingertips. So everything gets updated quite frequently. I'm always looking at it, but once I've gotten used to it, it's actually pretty quick for me to set up a page in that now. I did watch a couple of LinkedIn learning videos, and I would go specifically to a course, like one segment of a course that I kind of needed to figure stuff out. But I did learn it all on my own through YouTube and LinkedIn and just what I know about Microsoft Office in general.
Okay. Someone had a question. Do you have recommendations on best practices about the number of teams, channels, staff members should be a part of, so that they won't get overwhelmed and trying to find information?
Yeah. I would, if you have an all staff one that shares that important information that everybody needs to know, there are certain staff members that's all they have access to. And it's not because I'm trying to gatekeep information, it's because of that overwhelm. And then as they've gotten used to it and they're comfortable with more information coming to them, then we've invited them to other things. Because I have had staff members like, hey, can I have access to the collectors? I know I'm not an actual collector, but it would be nice to know kind of what they're talking about since I shelve and all of that. And I said, absolutely. So I started out just with the big one with GPL all staff for the individuals that I knew might be overwhelmed. And then I kind of expanded from there.
Okay. Did AVC help a lot setting up, or they're more the background?
They're more the background. There were a few things that I kind of hit roadblocks, and that was only because I didn't know how they had set things up in the back end of stuff. What I had access to, like when you go to additional apps, there's some cool ones on here. We had a long conversation about third-party apps within here and how some aren't as secure. So I typically just use the ones that are Microsoft Corporation. But so I did have some conversations with them, like, can I do this? What is this? But I did all of the setup myself.
Awesome. And I put in the chat, this is definitely
Yes,
scalable. You don't
yes,
need all of this. You can definitely start out smaller. So
absolutely.
awesome. Does anyone else have any other questions? We've got about 5 more minutes.
And again, I'm happy to share screenshots, PDFs, whatever anybody needs. I'm happy to share it. I can pull my email back up too if.
And I was going to put that in the chat.
Okay.
Same thing. There we go. Yeah, this is great. I saw her give this presentation at ILF last year, annual. I thought, can you? And I immediately asked her, I said, could you do this for a webinar? Because I think a lot of people could use this. Yeah, we're getting lots of thank yous, extremely helpful.
You're very welcome.
Very information is very practical and applicable. It looks like someone else is migrating over to the full suite later this year. Yeah. Yeah,
Once you get used to it, it's pretty good.
Yeah. We started this around 2020 March, right before, and we all know what happened around that time. So this helped a lot keeping our team together. I mean, we are in different parts of the state, and this helped us a lot because we use this for sharing documents, definitely the chat. We use it for meetings. You could do a webinar. I just thought Zoom would be a little bit better for this today. Could you demonstrate how to create a new team and add members?
Sure. So back in Teams, under Teams and Channel, oh, now you've got me. It changes. That's the one thing. You can do create a team here. So I just hit see all your teams. You can do create a team here. I believe I typically use class because I like the description groups. That was another thing I learned as we were going. I don't have access to all of those, depending on what kind of Microsoft license that we have. So I can just say, use this template, and it'll ask me to name my team, what I want it to be about. Back in Teams, if I want to add a channel, I can manage the channel and edit the channel. So that'll tell me like, hey, this is who I need to add to it. I'd like to archive this one. So the 3 dots at each of the channels, once they're created, you have a lot of flexibility of adding the members, adding a new channel to it. You can tag them as well. I haven't done a lot of the tagging because we don't have that many that we have to go through. So the options are right there. So see all your teams to create one, but then once you have your teams created, if you want to add additional channels or add members, you can just type in their email address, say, hey, I want to make sure that Susan Jurger is added to this, and I could add her. So you can adjust as you go there.
Yeah, and also we had a situation where someone didn't work at our library anymore, and they were in charge of a channel, and I was trying to add something to that channel, and I couldn't. So we had to definitely change the channel ownership to someone else. So that's, like you said, you have to think about that as well.
You have to think about that. Once you're in a channel too, or a team, you can do see all channels, and that will actually show you the archived ones as well. So these are the ones that are showing and the ones that are hidden, so that we don't have this huge list. 2024 Art Festival doesn't need to be on there anymore in the list, but it is available to us for that information that we maybe have brainstormed on there.
Okay, awesome. Well, we are at 10:59. So I am going to probably start wrapping up. So again, thank you so much, Emily, for sharing this. And also thanks to everyone for being here today. As a reminder, if you are watching an archived recording of this presentation, information on how to obtain your LEU is in the video's description in YouTube.